It's Monday, June 16th, and we're back, and we're late. We're late about 5 minutes, but technical difficulties, and we just need a little bit of that CBC budget. I don't know if they're going to use it all. They seem to have lots, but we have lots to talk about this morning as the weekend ends and the work week begins. The G7 kicks off today in Alberta. Did we just lose Ian? BC Ferries, story not going away. BC NDP play that same old tune. And Elizabeth may have found Jesus. All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. We got lots to talk about. We're going to kick it off with a little video here first. As the G7 begins, we're going to play this video. A sight you don't typically see in Canada. And let's play this clip here. That's good. And that is the entourage with Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, had his own way to get to the Kananaskis from the Calgary airport. As you've seen, Air Force One sitting on the tarmac there, and a bunch of Osprey, and then the Marine One was there on the tarmac. Everybody else, I think, left with Chinook, Canadian Chinook helicopters, but Trump definitely taking his own helicopter and also a bunch of Ospreys for guard.
Big man on campus. He flew over my house once in that when I was in London.
Those Ospreys are pretty cool,
right
actually.
Over my house. I remember looking up in awe at the Emperor flying over my head.
We have a bunch of photos. One of the stories is all the big wheels arriving there in Calgary, and then this is that one shot there with all the Ospreys out there. Those are kind of cool aircraft, and then another shot of the Osprey. Can't get enough of the Osprey. We should buy some of those.
They're really cool.
They are pretty cool. It's similar to the Harriers that the British used to have there. You know, in the Falkland War.
Yeah, fine invention of the Brits.
But everybody's showing up there, and here's a picture of the British plane there landing there in Calgary as well. That's Keir Starmer. And then, of course, Mark Carney arrives with his wife, Diana Fox Carney. And then Trump, it's him getting out in Kananaskis, actually, off of Marine One. And then Trump shaking hands with Anita Anand and Dominic LeBlanc. They don't seem to be elbows up too much there. They seem to be very much enamored.
Looks like teeth out. That seems to be the phrase now.
All smiles all around. Smiles all around. And then here's Trump with the RCMP as he was getting off of Air Force One with the Mounties there saluting.
Black overcoat, navy suit. That is a crime against fashion, isn't it? From Mr. Trump.
There you go. Well, according to many of the people that didn't want him in Canada, just one of his many crimes, right?
That's the most serious crime he's ever committed in my eyes.
Well, we have a clip here because Carney, that one of the first things on the agenda was Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, to meet with the President, Donald Trump, this morning. And then we got a little clip here of that first meeting. We got volume.
Bring everybody in.
Okay, you're in, Peter.
We good to go? All right, thank you. Mr. President, welcome to Canada.
Thank you very much.
It's a great honor. Happy birthday. A few days short.
A little bit.
A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. Happy birthday to the U.S. military as well, 250th, and this is the 50th birthday, if you will, of the G7. This marks the 50th birthday of the G7, and the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership of the United States, many issues. Geopolitics, economic, technology, and working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States, and the other G7 partners with your leadership. Very much looking forward to the meeting and grateful to have you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it, and we've developed a very good relationship, and we're going to be talking about trade and many other things. And we have a whole group of people, some traders and some other people. I see my top economy people. But we have a very talented group of people, and you do too, and I know they work together very well. I look forward to that. The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in, and I would say that that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in. And you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago, but it didn't work out that way. But it used to be the G8, and now it's, I guess, what's that, 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table, so it makes life more complicated. But you wouldn't have had the war. Other than that, I think we're going to accomplish a lot, and I expect to. And I think our primary focus will be trade and trade with Canada.
There you go.
I'd wonder if he has somebody on site there with a toothbrush to help him, because it's going to be pretty embarrassing if he walks around with an orange tongue for the rest of this summit there, Mr. Carney. I guess he has staff to get rid of that, though. But a very interesting question, I think.
It is, for sure. There you go. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Danielle Smith was on the tarmac as well to and welcome Donald Trump to Alberta. Obviously, that's her province. She's the premier of the province. So she was on the tarmac in Calgary. Lots of posts on the social media with the Osprey in the air. It was flooded with, like the Air Force One, Osprey, and then there was a couple of big, heavy carriers, 2 U.S. Air Force planes there. I mean, they're massive, right? So there you go.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
also,
it makes the British plane look a little bit pathetic, doesn't it? Just some crap Airbus with a British flag on the tail. It's like, doesn't really compare to the American monster trucks on campus.
Also, it does demonstrate our need to invest in our military, as you watched that escort of Ospreys with Marine One heading out to Kananaskis. That's quite the entrance, versus, the old Chinooks that are very tired.
I would say as well, we stopped that little press thing because it did get quite boring after that. I watched the whole thing. It's only a few minutes longer, but it stopped because Mark Carney, you can see him on screen quite clearly. Mark Carney keeps making the gestures. He's like, stop, stop, stop. he keeps trying to get it to stop, and then eventually it stops. But it's just quite interesting because I think Carney just wanted to sort of, be very nice and kind, let's put it that way, to Trump, and then kind of walk away, I think. But the questions started to come in, and Trump started to answer them, as you probably heard, in a way that wasn't very favorable to Mark Carney, talking about Putin and things like that, and Iran, and also it just didn't sound. It wasn't what Carney wanted. So it's quite interesting that he kind of terminated the press conference as soon as he could.
So Carney also met with your former leader, Keir Starmer, and he says that Canada and the United Kingdom think and work alike. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, though. In more diplomatic news, Carney yet more praise on the United Kingdom, praising Canada's relationship with the country as well as his own relationship with the leader. And he said he has learned lots from Starmer, while Starmer said the Canada-UK relationship is not merely historical but crucial. Yeah, I mean, the UK...
Yeah, weird little love-in they have, isn't it? I mean, the idea that he's learned things from Keir Starmer, I don't know what exactly he's learned from Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is a very unsuccessful politician in terms of how unpopular he is and how little he's achieved and how bad of a job he's done so far. But I just think this is the, I can't remember what they call it now in relationships, but where you get dumped and then you go on rebound. That's it. I think the British are like the rebound for the Canadians or for Carney. That's his great idea anyway. They've been rejected by the US, and so now it's like, oh, look how great our love-in is. But really, I mean, obviously Britain is a relatively powerful country, but it's nothing in comparison to the US. Obviously, it's just a speck of dust compared to America.
Yeah.
So it's hardly a replacement.
I mean, I'm going to give you an analogy of what I think of the UK. It's kind of like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Your memory of it is way bigger than it is. Do you know how great? Because the memory of the UK is absolutely, or the history of it is absolutely stunning and impressive. Yet the current situation not so good. And then here's a quote, a post here by the City of Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown announcing an agreement with Zenobē Energy, a global leader in fleet electrification, to transition Brampton Transit to a fully electric fleet. And Zenobē Energy is a UK thing, and of course, Keir Starmer loves it, right? Because that's a good deal for the UK. I haven't seen any announcements where it's the other way, where Canada got anything out of it. But we're buying, electric buses from Zenobē, and up to 1,000 battery electric buses. So great deal for the UK. I'm not so sure where Canada wins in that arrangement.
Could they not, modify those Canada Post vans that nobody wants to buy? Could they not modify those to be like buses, maybe? And then that would sort of be two birds with one stone.
Sell them back to the UK or something. Yeah, but a good deal. No wonder Keir Starmer liking the relationship. That was a good deal for them. And then there's an opinion piece in the Toronto Sun. Carney's industrial carbon tax will make the tariff pain worse. And I mean, that's pretty much common sense. Putting the carbon tax, hiding carbon tax and the industrial carbon tax versus at the pump. You're going to get what you get. But this is a Holly Dome Blacklock story. There is a growing protest over Bill C-5 that Carney is trying to get going. His nation-building bill on mornings the Commons must pass it by midnight Friday. Environmentalists joined Conservatives and Liberal MPs in questioning the scope of Bill C-5. And they said this should be carefully scrutinized in committee. And that said Liberal MP Patrick Weller. The bill granted Cabinet extraordinary powers, and we've seen what they've done with extraordinary powers in the past. The way the legislation is written, it would allow for unnamed factors to drive decision-making. Weller says the danger was obvious. The legislation would give the ability to a minister to exempt any national interest project from an existing law and regulation based on advice of the minister. If this type of power is to be in the hands of a minister, it's important that there have disclosure and transparency in how that power is used.
Which is why Bill C-69 and all the other controversial bills that the Tories want to be removed, I think that's why they haven't been removed, and they're not going to be removed, because the Liberals would rather have be in a position where they can just click their fingers and those laws disappear. And that's what this law allows, basically, isn't it? It's kind of, they can just completely override those laws, but they still stay on the books. It's a very, very cynical political maneuver designed to fool the environmentalist and First Nations constituencies of the Liberal Party vote, to try to fool them into thinking, no, we're not going to back down on that, but we are just going to randomly override those laws whenever we feel like it. So, and it also makes them more powerful, makes the federal government more powerful. So I suppose it's like win-win-win for the Liberals.
Carney introduced that bill on June 6th, and he said we will identify projects of national interest, those that strengthen Canada's self-reliance, resiliency, and security. And they asked him, why did you make this a political decision? He said, it gives authority to the minister in consultation with the prime minister to make those decisions. So two people, just like you said.
It gives him more power, yeah. I mean, why would somebody in power want more power? I wonder. That's unusual, isn't it? We've never seen that happen before. What was interesting is Stephen Guilbeault was asked about this bill, and a question that would naturally follow from reading an article like this, which is, do you agree with it? Can you say expressly that you agree with it? Mr. Guilbeault, the kind of eco-extremist. I mean, I don't want to give him the word eco because let's just call him an extremist and an activist. Anyway, and he was asked that question just this morning, and he said anything but that he explicitly endorsed it. He just waffled and dodged around the question. So obviously that means that Stephen Guilbeault does not like this law.
Well, it cuts him out. It's the energy minister and Carney that will be making decisions. Well, Carney. for that
But
matter.
it's also as he is on. I mean, I call him an extremist, not as an insult, not as in a pejorative sense, but I'm saying that as a sort of descriptive term. He is on the extreme end of belief about the environment in Canada and the world. But that's why I think he's saying no, because he knows that this could, like we just said, it could suspend certain laws, like and change the way that environmental impact assessments are done, and all the rest of it. It can kind of suspend those for individual projects, and he clearly hates that. And to the extent that he's willing to abandon the principle of collective responsibility, which is in a Westminster system, the cabinet of which he is a part, is supposed to present a united front on all matters that have been determined by the Prime Minister. Prime Minister has determined that this bill, C5, is the way forward. And Guilbeault has violated the principle of collective responsibility because he won't. He's not putting his name on it. He's not saying that he likes it. So I mean, that's already for the nerds out there, the political nerds. That's like a very visible split there between Guilbeault and Carney, which I would imagine is gonna become more evident as the years roll on.
Yeah, there you go. Housing Minister, this is again Hollydome Blacklocks there. It says the Housing Minister, Gregor Robertson, attempted to hide $10.85 million in property investments from questioning in Commons, and then they found it through, the Breaker News found it through BC Property Records. So the Housing Minister, we didn't want to discuss his real estate holdings, but he has investments in at least 3 properties. Tax assessor put his combined value at $10.85 million. Robertson owns a 2024 house built in Tofino, an undisclosed interest in a lakeside property in Squamish, was assessed at $5.6 million. Not a bad looking house, I guess, and included a 2-story home on nearly 17 acres. Separately, in a company Robertson also registered in 2022 called Levin Otters Investment, is listed as the owner of a close to $3 million 11-acre property on Pacific Rim Highway near Cox Bay and Tofino. Maybe he's renting that out to Justin. Justin loves Tofino.
You read that and you think, no wonder the Liberals have failed on housing for so many years, and no wonder the other day he came and put his foot in his mouth saying that he wouldn't like prices to come down. I presume that this is his net worth, basically, invested in these properties. But also, he's not worried about housing, is he? He's got a lovely penthouse in Vancouver. He can go up Squamish if he feels like it. Depending on his mood, he can go to Squamish and do some climbing and have fun, or he can go to Tofino and have a nice surf and bring Trudeau around. It's like, obviously a person like this cannot possibly understand what the housing crisis is like in this country, and nor would a person like this ever want prices to fall down, because then that's his treasure chest with all his gold coins in it. He doesn't want that to diminish in value, does he? So this looks, I mean, right off the bat, this was quite a sort of, sorry to be so blunt, Mr. Carney, but this was quite a clownish decision, I think, to make this man housing minister. And as every day passes, it looks more and more clownish. I don't know what Mark Carney was thinking, but I think this is also gonna intensify, I think, calls for this man to go away somewhere and be replaced by somebody else.
Yeah, we do have a little graph here to show you the mortgage pressure is still really high in Canada. If you can look at that chart there, that's Vancouver on the far left, showing you what, like the mortgage payment as a percentage of income. It takes 92% there currently, and the historical in 2020 was average was 40% of the income. Vancouver just running away like a runaway truck. Toronto, same thing. Victoria, same thing. Hamilton, and then like kind of getting better. Edmonton, still the place to be. Edmonton and Winnipeg, minus the weather.
Yeah.
Right?
Quebec's all right there as well, isn't it?
Minus the weather. We're going to skip that.
And a few other things.
We're going to skip that next one. We're going to talk about Bill C-18 actually here, and this is the first one. Michael Geist put out a tweet. Bill C-4, which eviscerates privacy rules for political parties, retroactive to 2000, goes to the Finance Committee. Normally, a privacy bill would go through the Ethics Committee, but this is a tax bill with buried privacy provisions. And Andrew Coyne said, abuse of power, only we're so used to it, nobody recognizes anymore. There you go.
Certainly, that is directly related to having an enfeebled press that isn't worthy of the name.
And then Brian Lilly put out, this is the Globe and Mail, also having a tough time here. Israel's attack on Iran puts a leader addicted to war in the spotlight. And then Brian Lilly had a comeback on that and called that, that piece from the Globe and Mail, they should be embarrassed. Iran is the cancer of the Middle East. They have funded proxy wars against Israel. Lots of people coming out, including your old friend Boris Johnson, came out and says that Israel is doing the world a favor by taking out Iran's nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, well, what Boris Johnson says and writes is very different from what Boris Johnson actually does. And when he's had power, he's disgraced himself again and again and again. So I feel like he's so discredited that I don't think anybody serious cares what he has to say anymore, to be honest. But this thing that Lily's pointed out, just to bring it back to the press, what's so sad in a way is that the Globe and Mail it's kind of like Canada's only serious newspaper, basically. It's like it's in a category consisting of itself only. So when it does things like that, when it writes stupid articles and takes stupid positions on things, it's like it actually is sort of like a national tragedy every time it does that, because it has so much influence and it's so important in in Canada and to Canadian society that it matters. It's very consequential when they lose their minds. So it is a shame. And I mean, I know Lily wouldn't say that because he works for a different newspaper, which isn't very important or consequential. But that's sad, and that's that's why it sucks so much that CBC is so awful as well, because there aren't very many serious sort of TV news options either. In fact, I mean, I'd say there's basically none, but it's monopolized by CBC.
Well, this next one will get your blood boiling. I know it has mine. So we're going to play this clip here from Andrew Lawton talking about Bill C-18.
Baseless smears like that are why these liberals can't be trusted to regulate speech in this country. For years, this liberal government has determined to censor what Canadians see and say online. From Bill C-11, which put the liberals in control of YouTube algorithms, to Bill C-18, which squeezed out small and independent media, and to their thought crime Bill C-63. Now we learn in the National Post that cabinet ministers over there are all clamoring over who gets to be responsible for the latest online censorship law. So will the minister who gets to censor what Canadians say please reveal themselves now? L'honorable ministre de l'identité.
The Honourable Minister.
Even Google agreed that they should do this. Google will pay $100 million to help Canadian journalism in this country. An international US-based company would agree to do that, but the Conservative Party of Canada would vote against this, would prevent that from happening, would want to prevent our media from getting $100 million so that there's more local content, more journalists hired in our newsroom across the country. It is simply unthinkable. It is immoral, Mr. Speaker.
It's immoral to talk out against Bill C-18. Sometimes I really get the impression that they're not conscious of the words that are coming out of their mouths. They don't know, do they? To call Bill C-18
opposition
a glorious piece of legislation, that opposition to which qualifies as immorality. I know English is a second language, but I mean that's a new law, I think, for Mr. Guilbeault.
Obviously, you and I are immoral, as so is our MP here, the Liberal MP Stephen Fuhr, who said that it needs to be repealed.
It's a bit awkward, isn't it? One of his own colleagues is immoral. Imagine that. Imagine being called immoral by your work friend.
Wasn't like Google was willing to pay the $100 million, and it's basically nothing when you scatter that amongst the media that's left clamoring for a few crumbs. And because they've had their traffic halved and their revenues halved because of Bill C-18. Close to 100 outlets have failed in Canada. Maybe somebody should read that to him. And we know he's read it because we sent it to the Prime Minister, and he sent us a response that said it's been forwarded to none other than Stephen Guilbeault. So we're patiently awaiting for a response here. on Bill C-18, which is crushing local independent media, basically crushing, while they selectively fund some. And then he stands up there and gives us absolutely no hope for them to remove it when he talks about it being immoral to even say that it's a bad bill. Just amazingly frustrating to listen to this guy speak. And then obviously Meta is still in his mind the evil giant that needs to be punished, that the Liberals now spend millions and millions of dollars to access because they say it's so important to get news on there because that's where Canadians get their news. That's not immoral.
Yeah, it's so immoral and evil that they gave it millions of dollars to help them win the election.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, isn't it? But Stephen Guilbeault, nothing against the guy personally, and I feel this about all of them really, but when you hear something like that, does that fill you with confidence as a Canadian citizen when you look at that? This man is in charge of various aspects of our lives, and that's his caliber. I just, it gets to a point where you just have to, I don't know, you almost have to laugh or die, laugh or perish.
We're one of the few outlets beating the drum that's left, actually, that's beating the drum. Some of them have folded, including Bell laid off 4,800 employees. I guess they're immoral as well because they cited Bill C-18. Kamloops this week closed local here. The list is on and on and on. And what we're going to have left here is CBC with more funding, and then they gave themselves and executives a raise. And we're going to see if we can get Andrew Lawton and see if we can get an interview with Andrew Lawton. And we're going to reach out. We have reached out, I think, to Guilbeault. And that's like talking to God as well. He's there, but he doesn't respond. Except for
just like Facebook. Trying to speak to Facebook is even worse, if anything.
But maybe...
obviously we should add to that and say we pay taxes to fund Stephen Guilbeault's lifestyle. He's a public servant who chooses not to serve sometimes.
And then Holly Doan also a little angry with this. The Fed's pretending they're ahead of AI. Meanwhile, in court, arguing government can't share digital passwords that protect media. I think she spent over $500,000 already fighting this and other creator copyright stuff. Their investment in AI is just ludicrous as well. And the person they put in charge of AI makes Gregor Robertson look like an A-team pick. Evan Solomon as the AI guy. Like, come on.
But this is like, she's banging her own drum, isn't she, Holly Dawn? Yeah. And it says, it's just as justified a drum to bang. But we don't really know much about that because,
Well, I've spoke to her a couple
maybe
times
cynically,
on
it doesn't really affect us. But she's banging that drum and she's highlighting an instance of massive hypocrisy on the part of the Liberal Party, just as we are, really. And really, it's every sort of facet of life. There'll be some pressure group or some individual similar to Holly Dawn and us banging a drum, trying to highlight Liberal hypocrisy, which is why usually after 10 years, a government is kicked out of power, because inevitably, when you're in power for that long, you accumulate masses of failure, and hypocrisy is kind of the symptom of that failure. So usually, and that's why so many people are expecting them to be turfed. But then, obviously we know what happened. The Lord decided to give Mark Carney Donald Trump, and the rest is history.
And I was going to play this clip, but I couldn't even listen to it again, so I didn't want to play it again. This is a comment on, they did it as they're getting ready because they're going to cover the G7. Imagine how much better Canada would be without the CBC cramming their bias and propaganda down people's throats. They're basically The View pretending to be a news outlet. That might be generous.
I haven't seen that clip. Yeah. Can you summarize it, maybe?
Well, basically, it went off, and there was like a very anti-Trump tirade, and how Trump is going to need to do something to bolster his whatever popularity in the United States, and maybe that will be a deal with Canada or something. I don't know. Like, I couldn't even.
Right. Okay.
Just people like they speak with something. It's like anyway. I don't know if you.
All you had to say really was CBC. That explains it. Those three letters.
And then the Online News Act here. CBC sticking up for local independent journalism. I just don't know where they're sticking up for it. Nowhere that I've seen.
Well,
So,
they did interview you, I guess. That
yeah.
was very kind of them, wasn't it?
They gave me like, I think 90 seconds, right? And then, because the story at that time was they were shocked that all the news outlets, including them, have lost half their traffic and half their revenues. With the exception being, they get funded from the government. They don't really care, right? Whereas the rest of the outlets...
They get an increase in funding.
Well, the rest of the outlets, with half their traffic, obviously have a tougher time selling advertising, and then have to beg for crumbs, like the Google money that Guilbeault was talking about is basically crumbs, like crumbs, like Oliver Twist asking for more porridge, just basically nothing. And then you split that out, and then supposedly they're fighting for Meta to get more money. I got news for Guilbeault: let it be a free and independent media, because you already have one state-funded media, then you have the other ones like CTV and the Globe and Mail, and like the rest of them, Glacier, all on the take, and we don't get any of that take from the Canadian government, federal government. So they selectively decide who gets money. So there you go.
And not only that, but one of the main ways to make money, to build an audience, which is why Andrew Lawton mentioned independent media or smaller media. One of the main ways to do it is through Facebook, obviously. It's the biggest social media platform in the world. Countless studies have shown that a massive chunk of Canadians used to get their news serendipitously from Facebook. So in other words, when they were looking at pictures of pigs or something like that, or kangaroos jumping around, they would see a news article and go, oh, that's interesting. So not only have they given money to these really often very crap, old-fashioned, like out-of-date, useless outlets, but they've also prevented the smaller outlets from trying to make their own path independent of the government. So it's this nightmare situation where it's like it's a double hit.
Yeah, we had a very successful news outlet. We had an audience of $200,000 that we earned over a decade serving this community. And we knew how to monetize it. And we rose up in a very crowded market to be, one of the top outlets here. And they basically have taken away our audience. They've taken away our audience of 200,000 with zero compensation. And
well,
also,
they're still paying money to get an audience on that platform that we're banned from.
Because they said it's so important that they recognize Canadians get their news there, so they have to spend millions of dollars to get their news on there. The insanity of it, and I imagine you could say that straight to Guilbeault, and he would still just go off on his own morality thing. But Daniel Smith.
Well, the world is easy to understand to an extremist, because you're either a friend or a foe. You're either good or you're evil. There's no more complexity to it. It's really that simple, I suppose. And for him, an evil person in Parliament asked him a question, so he said, "Oh, are you with the evil people then?" And that's satisfactory for a mind like Stephen Guilbeault's.
We're obviously on that same list. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith, obviously on that same list there, defends charging most Albertans for COVID-19 vaccines. She says that her government's new policy forcing many Albertans to pay out of pocket for a COVID-19 vaccination is on focusing about who need it most. It could set a precedent across the country how the federal government put provinces in charge of buying their own COVID shots this year. Speaking Saturday on her call-in radio show, after the government announcement, Smith said the $135 million got flushed down the drain last year with doses wasted in part because Albertans are increasingly choosing not to take them. And she said, well, I think it's partly because they don't work particularly well, if you want to know the truth, said Smith. So if you're adamant to get your shot and you don't want to pay for it, I guess you can just drive across the border to British Columbia and you can get your
get as many as you want.
Yeah, you can have as many as you want. I'm sure you can take some of the other people's that don't want them. So, yeah.
But I think she's kind of underplaying it a little bit there, where she's saying Albertans increasingly choosing not to take them. It's like the majority of people aren't bothered. I don't know anybody that's had one in months and months and months. And I know lots of people who are quite, seniors who are supposedly the target audience. And these aren't like anti-vaxxers or whatever. These are just ordinary people. Like nobody really is taking them, and the data seems to bear that out. Because the rates are just right down. Like they're not being used, are they? I can't really grasp why this would be particularly controversial.
$135 million for COVID shots. Somebody's making money last year, just in Alberta. Flushed down the drain.
Pfizer making quite a lot of money, I guess.
There you go. And then, of course, Elizabeth May, you know, she's the lone green person in the party, and obviously because we're doing Jesus's work. And she calls solar panels Jesus's work. I don't know if Jesus would agree with that, if Jesus was actually in the business of selling solar panels. But she says solar panels embody the teachings of Jesus. And she's the MP for Saanich Gulf Islands. The re-elected Green Party leader is the first. She's the Green Party leader of the one. She's leader of herself.
I don't. What is she? What is she trying
the election,
to say?
Right? Who's going to be the leader? Well,
so solar panels are the son of God, and the rapture is coming, and solar panels will then rule for 1,000 years, while solar panels decide who's good and evil.
So the
is that
parish,
what is she on about?
the parish actually blessed the panels. And you know, because it's like following the path of Jesus. So Jesus Christ, I thought he said in church there, separate God and or state and church there, and no money changers. But obviously, if you're selling solar panels, then Jesus is in on the solar panels.
Render that which is Caesar's unto Caesar's, and render that which is solar panels unto solar panels, I believe is the line, isn't it?
In this article, again, a Blacklock story that goes on to say that some of the solar panels coming from China, not the best working conditions, like some of it's slave labor, human rights violations and all that stuff. But Jesus obviously is okay with that as well.
I'm like reading this article trying to figure out, the only thing that's screaming out to me here is Blacklock's failure to spell the word practicing. Not happy about that, Mr. Blacklocks. But she says that she's a practicing Anglican, but I don't understand how is solar panels connected to the teachings of Jesus?
Well, it might be like she indulged into the wine maybe while she was in whatever in session there, whatever it is, maybe too much of the wine, too much of something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Too much ideology, I think, Elizabeth. That's your problem. Too much ideology.
Again, the leader of the Green Party of one. I don't know, like, anyway. Doug Ford, he says this is disgusting. We need a federal government to get serious about bail reform now. We need to get tough on crime, justice for criminals. Well, Doug, you had your chance. You supported the party that wasn't going to do anything different.
Quite.
You did this, Doug.
And then he immediately, once his favoured horse had won the race, almost it seemed like the next day, he came out and just like stuck the knife into the Liberal government's policies, which are Mark Carney's policies as well. Yeah. Big Doug doesn't seem to use that big noggin of his very often, does he?
No, I think he just likes to play the populist as well. This is another first reading. High immigration is worsening Canada's economic problem, says report. You don't need a report for this, I don't think. Worst GDP per capita growth in developed world. We've talked about this over and over again. And for the people that watch us regularly, I mean, this is the same old stuff. Again, stressed healthcare, stressed housing market, unemployment, high unemployment, no jobs for youth, low wages. Shall we go on?
It's a very long and depressing list, isn't it?
And in here, this is one from the food professor. This is one that you like to talk about lots. New report suggests chicken imports are surging in Canada. Canada has now imported 67 million kilograms of chicken so far in 2025, up 54%. Jumps are largely due to shortfall in Canadian domestic chicken production, with 8 million kilograms of underproduction recorded between April and May, the worst in 50 years. Canada's chicken supply is a structural outcome of tightly controlled supply management that lacks short-term flexibility. There's our old French supply management. When underproduction happens, it can't be corrected overnight. so processors turn to imports. There you go.
Which is highly beneficial to America's, whichever area of the agricultural economy is affected. So in this case, chickens. It's usually good news for the Americans, isn't it? Because they can just let rip and sell in loads of chickens. But the Americans are probably the biggest opponents of supply management in the world, I would say, alongside the Europeans and the Brits. Our greatest friends in Britain, who absolutely despise this system and want it to be destroyed.
Student told to stay home after anti-Israel diatribe during her grad speech. A student in Ottawa High School has been told not to come to school today after making anti-Israel comments during a speech last week. Elizabeth Yao, a valedictorian, referred to colonial and genocidal atrocities, including the massacre of more than 17,000 Palestinian children in Gaza. The CBC, however, has branded those comments pro-Palestinian in its sympathetic coverage of her speech.
Yeah, I think this story is it's not interesting that an impressionable young girl would say something fashionable and naive. That to me isn't very interesting, because that's kind of what young people are for, isn't it? To say and do stupid things. What's most interesting here is that the CBC has written this article, and it is a disgrace to journalism, this article. I feel like I need to take several showers after having read that article. Not just the framing. So it frames that comment. So this girl's come out and said, colonial and genocidal atrocities, including the massacre of more than 17,000 Palestinian children in Gaza. Obviously, he hasn't used the word Israel, but that's a claim that Israel is, number one, a colonial state. Okay. Number two, that it's committed genocide. Also insane. And number three, that it's massacred more than 17,000 Palestinian children, or just children, really, you could say. So that, in the CBC's world, is a pro-Palestine comment. I mean, have I lost my mind, or have they lost their mind? That's an anti-Israel comment. But they framed it as pro-Palestinian. And then they've written this article, and the only people that they interview are in favor of what she said, this girl. That's it. There's no interview with like anybody that might have raised a question saying, oh, hold on, actually, it's a little bit dodgy to defame a country of several million people. That's a bit weird. Maybe you shouldn't do that when you're supposed to be delivering a speech saying, school was fun this year. I'm glad I got high grades. See you at university, guys. That's your job. That's what you should say when you do this speech. But I don't know. It's just that when I see things like this from the CBC, it's like seeing Gilboa. It's like I have to just laugh it off, or my head's gonna explode. You know, when I confront the realities of it.
Lots going on down in the United States. This is a little bit on our international. Lots going on in the United States with those protest rallies on ICE agents, and some of them getting out of hand. And then they had that King's Day rally. And we got something in, if you want to see that, we got something in the Are You Serious section that's absolutely ties into that. And it's worth sticking around for. But Donald Trump saying that he wants more deportation highlights LA, New York, and Chicago, as urged U.S. officials increase the speed at which they're deporting migrants who are here in the country illegally. Writing on a social media platform, he still wants the single largest mass deportation program in history. He named Chicago, New York, and LA. He also did say, I think we covered this on Friday, that they're going to carve out a deal for migrant farmers, though, that he's going to figure out a way to keep the people that aren't criminals and are working in the farm community. There's a lot of posts out there talking about a lot of these white liberal women saying, like, who's going to cut their grass and who's going to wash their clothes, who's going to do their dishes, and they're losing their minds and crying on social media about that. And that's where a lot of people have linked this to having open borders and illegal migrants, is that they could actually, it's basically modern day slavery for many people, because they could hide them into the system and not pay them even the minimum wage.
Well, it also brings down, as Justin Trudeau, that world famous critic of immigration, said, it drags down the wages of people at the lower end of the income spectrum. And that's what happens, obviously, in the US. And that's why people have also characterized this as a form of class war.
Yeah. And then that's been said here by many of the unions here as well, saying that it's dragged down wages and that. And it's the illegal ones that are really the problem because they can hide them under the system. There's lots of sex trafficking, human trafficking, all kinds of things going on here. And there's even allegations of that stuff happening here in Kelowna. It's just hard to get anybody to talk. We got a clip here to play from a LA City Council member that actually asked the police to break the law. Here, let's play this clip.
Like AI technology, to create a situation where your department can identify, hey, there's agents, non-city of LA, in a neighboring town. Everyone go on alert in a way where you can support our business community and our immigrant community to know that it's time. That's something related to the lack of due process, the lack of warrants is about to hit our town. I'm asking a creativity question here. What can your department do to do more to warn us, to warn the business community that outside of our LA borders, coming in from Inglewood, coming in from Antelope Valley, I don't know, you can warn us so that we can warn our folks in the spirit of your loyalty to the city of Los Angeles?
So you're asking me to warn you about an enforcement action being taken by another agency before it happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Why not?
That would be obstruction of justice. You may want to talk to the city attorney about that.
I mean, that's funny, isn't it? It gives you an idea of how radical and extreme a lot of these people are on that side that doesn't want the law to be enforced.
Well,
but I would say just like a pretty sort of abstruse point, but I do believe that I think there might be some sort of legal allowance for that because that's how those cities operate as like sanctuary cities and things, because I think they are actually allowed to withdraw cooperation in certain circumstances with federal authorities, but obviously I'm not a constitutional lawyer and nor is she, obviously, but there is some kind of system in America. It's so weird but they do kind of have a certain amount of power to ignore or not assist or something like that.
Well, we're going to move on to British Columbia and local news here, mostly British Columbia news here this morning. And this thing is not going to go away. This thing is absolutely not going to go away, the BC Ferry thing. And this is MLA Harman Bangu. He says they promised shipbuilding in BC, and they gave the contract to China. And this is not going to go away. So much on this, and we're going to play a little clip here from Harman. Here, let's play this clip.
Hey guys, Harman Bangu here. I know a lot of you are wondering, why didn't any local companies put in a bid for the new 4 vessels that are being built for BC Ferries? A big reason why is they're still up against things like the industrial carbon tax. There is no industrial carbon tax in China. In China, there isn't a lot of workers' rights. They're going to use slave labor like the Uyghur Muslims. And here in British Columbia, companies like C-SPAN have to actually pay people good wages, which is a good thing. They can use apprenticeships. It's graduation season right now. We have kids that are going to be coming out of school. They want to see that there's a future right here in British Columbia where they can have good paying jobs and build a family right here in BC. They could have been in there working on some of these ships that are going to be built for the BC Ferries. But what did we do? We outsourced them to the CCP shipyard in China, where they have slave labor, like I said, and they're not going to provide any Canadian jobs, use Canadian steel, bring any economic benefit to our province. One thing we need to get serious about is bringing some general revenue to our province. This could have been a great time. There's income tax on this work. That could have brought money to the general revenue. The local businesses, you're going to have people coming out, commuting them to lunch. This would have helped communities. This would have helped British Columbia. Tell David Eby, cancel this contract.
Well, their argument right now seems to be, oh, I can't do that. It's not my responsibility.
Well, I mean, what they can do is actually, just get a bunch of illegal migrants that are under the, like to work under the system there, and then, maybe they can get cheaper labor here. It's just ridiculous, right? Like, here's a chance for Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and jobs here, good paying jobs. And they send it to China. And here's one here from, we'll listen to Andrew Lawton here speak on it as well. Or Aaron Gunn, sorry, Aaron Gunn.
Thousands of good-paying Canadian jobs were lost this week when BC Ferries announced the purchase of 4 new ships, not from shipyards here in Canada, but from shipyards owned by the Chinese Communist Party. This despite BC Ferries receiving more than $36 million in taxpayer money from this Liberal government, taxpayer money that is now subsidizing jobs in China, a country that has kidnapped Canadian citizens and has unjustly tariffed our farmers and our fishermen. Will this Liberals government stop pretending they're helpless, show leadership, and demand these ships are built in the best country in the world, right here in Canada?
Secretary of the Minister, Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I share the concern and I share the outrage. The reality is that this particular project, again, is under provincial procurement standards, regulations, and oversight. But I will tell you this, when it comes to this federal government, to everyone in this chamber, it is going to be Canadian first, always.
I don't believe that.
Always?
Canadian first, always. Then why not just cut off the funding and say, like, until you cancel that contract and bring it home, we won't be giving you the $65 million. Always.
I mean, there are so many ways to do it, really, aren't there? That's just one, and the obvious one.
Shows you how powerless they actually are, or how, I don't know, like just kind of just like always virtue signaling and not doing stuff, not doing the hard work that needs to get done. And John Rustad put out a piece too, and the Vancouver Sun, actually, a North Vancouver-based shipbuilder C-SPAN said in September that Canadian shipyards and supply chains cannot compete with low-wage countries that have lower employment standards, lower environmental standards, and lower safety standards. What does that say? What does that the British Columbia government say to workers here in British Columbia? What have they said to the unions overall? And why more unions were supporting John Rustad than supporting the NDP? And then Rustad saying, look at this straight, NDP and EB have billions of waste on clean BC, but won't invest thousands of BC jobs and billions of dollars of investment here in BC. BC's own C-SPAN makes it clear if they had the cooperation for the NDP, they'd proudly build those BC ferries. And this thing is getting worse. I mean, more and more people are speaking out again. So like I said earlier, that this could well be the scandal of the NDP this year.
It's also bad for the Liberals, though. I think it's bad for both. Bad for both of them. Yeah. But I mean, Ian's just said there, which is true as far as I understand it, that they're at maximum capacity in Canada. So it's like there wasn't exactly the spare capacity. I've read that all over, and obviously that's been said as well by the people that have made this decision. But even if that's the case, there are countries like South Korea who are world famous for their ship production, and they're our friends, they're our allies. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we ask the Koreans to do it?
Even if that is true about capacity, why not actually invest in more capacity? Because there's people without jobs right now. Do you know what I mean? That totally is how you grow the economy, right? That is how you grow the economy. And Rob Shaw there says, in his reporter there, he says that it blows a hole in Captain Canada persona by allowing BC Ferries to have a contract with Chinese government, and that's David Eby, who puts on that cape when he talks about buying liquor and stuff like that. But here's where it matters, where the rubber hits the road with like this massive multi-billion-dollar deal, and it goes to China. And then Rob Shaw again with he says the BC NDP biggest labor groups passed an emergency motion through the party's provincial council calling for BC ferry ships to be produced locally in a rebuke of the direction of David Eby and the government. So again, this is not going to go away. And I think this is going to be a hill that the NDP will not win on. And they don't like to change their mind on anything, do they? They don't like to give up on things that are wrong. And same as the Liberals. They don't like to say they were wrong. And they're clearly wrong on this.
But to the extent as well that Eby promised all kinds of changes and all kinds of things that he got wrong when he thought he was going to lose the election. And then when he won by a whisker, gone a bit quiet on that, hasn't he? So, even when he does promise to change, when he's basically got a gun pointed at his face, that his political career is at risk of being terminated, even then, he doesn't really want to change, even when he makes that promise.
And the
so he doesn't like to change, and just like the Liberals.
And then this scandal gets bigger and bigger and bigger as well, and the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger again, exacerbated by immigration and also the COVID policies of Dr. Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dix have put our healthcare crisis in crisis here. And BC Interior ER once again closed, this time for being shut for 49 hours. And you and I interviewed Gavin Du, MLA for Kelowna Mission here, and he put forward some thoughts there, and he blamed. Well, he said that Susan Brown, the CEO of Interior Health, has to go. She has to resign immediately. We got a response back was sent to us by Josie Osborne, the health minister, and she said, you know, it's important that every healthcare worker feel safe and supported when raising concerns. The concerns must be addressed thoroughly, fairly, and through appropriate channels. So not in the public. You know, of course, they don't want any of this out in the public as usual. They want it to be all quiet. Interior Health leadership is meeting directly with physicians at KGH to discuss and work through these issues. Where were they meeting with them when they were resigning en masse? Like, we have 20 pediatricians, right? And resigning en masse. And now they're going to meet with them. Well, the only reason they're meeting with them now is because, obviously, of all these resignations. And now this is a very public thing. Osborne's statement not only reinforced her support for the senior leadership at IH, but also called out BC Conservatives' Dues Friday, which called for Brown to that at all times, especially at times like this, it's vital that we all work together on solutions, both short-term and long-term, said Osborne. Attacking individuals publicly does nothing to help us move us forward. We remain committed to supporting dialogue and processes in place to building stronger healthcare. We've heard this how many times, and from the Liberals and NDP in so many cases, right? Don't dare attack the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklin, for he should be fired. That's what he should be. Tiff Macklin should be fired for telling Canadians to go ahead and take out that mortgage and rest assured that interest rates won't go up, and they raise them by 19-fold. And here it is. Susan Brown makes close to $500,000 a year, $400 and some thousand. She can take the heat. That's her job, take the heat. And if you look at the state of healthcare and the Interior Health, like, look at the closures. She's responsible for all those closures. Lillooet, Oliver, 100 Mile House. And in your mind, you know, she's been in that job for 7 years. Has it gotten better or worse?
Well, it's never been this bad, has it, in terms of the closures, at least?
And then, and if she's retiring in 6 months, why not change the leadership now? Why not change it now so they can have and you know, and then we talked with Gavin Du, and he said that, you know, some of these doctors would be willing to listen if there was a change in leadership, but they don't see much there. So we're going to try and get a doctor to even speak off the record. We're going to work on it. We're going to work on this story more and more and more, and see what the city of Kelowna has to say about it too. Well, you know, they pay some of the bills, right?
Indeed.
But this comment here, it drives me, right? You know, how we need to work together. They used that through COVID so many times so that they wouldn't be held accountable. So many times, the same sad excuse, right? Why not take some responsibility for the actions? Why not take responsibility for your actions? Or lack of action. What's that? Or
That's
lack
hard,
of action.
isn't it? That's difficult.
How many times have you heard the same thing when the attack of the Conservatives or the attack of anybody that opposed what they said? How many times have you heard the same
that idea
thing?
of like, let's unite Canadians rather than divide them. Usually the same sentence will include a division between Canadians on it. It's like, we need to unite, not divide, and it's anti-vaxxers like you that are the problem.
The same sentence, and then they're always asking for the Conservatives to toe the line, or, you know, except when it comes time to decision making, then obviously they don't get any decision making. And this line here drives me crazy. At all times, especially times like this, it's vital we all work together. Well, when are we working together? Show me the evidence. That's what I would say if I was Gavin Du. Show me the evidence where we're working together.
Exactly. Well, it's just, it's basically, yeah, you got me. I don't really have a comeback. So here's some just generic waffle, and somebody will buy this somewhere. Some idiot on Reddit or something will buy this.
This story is not going away either, and Susan Brown says she's committed to completing her term as Interior Health CEO. My advice would be to pay her for her last 6 months and just put a new leader in, even if she's done a good job. I mean, at this point, they need a change in direction, and then better to get that change in direction going sooner than later. No?
Certainly the Gavin Du's argument, yeah.
And
Interestingly, when we spoke to him, he was a bit solemn about it as well, wasn't he? He's not like relishing the prospect.
And they've wasted 200 grand. How many? Like, I mean, Daniel Smith said they wasted $135 million just on COVID shots nobody would take.
God, the amount of money wasted. It's always procurement, isn't it? That is the real, that's where you waste money.
Maybe somebody should find out how much British Columbia, if Alberta spent $135 million, I can bet you BC spent more.
Yeah, I'm be interested to look at that. I'm sure it's available.
Well, and then we're going to talk about another ongoing thing that the BC NDP won't admit that they're wrong on, and this is another black eye for EB and the NDP. Check News put this out. Airbnb has begun sending out thousands of people cancellation notice for stays in BC amid a dispute over the provincial government over short-term rental registration process that tech giant says the province has botched. So, and we're going to be hosting the World Cup here pretty quick here too. So there you go. Short-term vacation rental platforms. Airbnb says thousands of reservations in BC are at a risk of being canceled due to the province's crackdown on the industry amid a housing crisis. And the government blamed Airbnb for the housing crisis, not immigration and not the poor investment climate here in British Columbia. All they've done and made it worse here. You can see the cranes coming down in Kelowna and not going back up. So another non-win for the British Columbians.
It also just feels like they're waging war with the universe or something here, aren't they? Because the likes of Airbnb, just like Uber, loads of groups and governments have tried to push back on Uber for so long. It doesn't really work, does it? Because the consumer wants Airbnb and they want Uber. It's very, very difficult to it's almost like trying to stop the advance of time or something, isn't it?
And then we do have an interview coming up with, they promise us anyway, an interview with Brenda Bailey, and to see if she can fix her grade that she has here from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
She wouldn't be valedictorian with that grade, would she?
I don't know if we're going to put that up or not, but next, there you go. There you go. Let's see if we can improve on that, Miss Bailey. Let's see if we can improve on that. And then taking some heat, the BC party's leader vows to go where others won't, and that's Dallas Brody. Says she's going to let the chips fall where they may. And she's
Captain Kirk's language there, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. The new One BC party, twice as many elected officials as the Elizabeth May's party.
Yeah, and the same as the BC Greens.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, look at that. Hey,
it'd be pretty awkward if one of them left and the party continued and it was called One BC and there was just one person in it.
There you go.
That's what I'm hoping for that. No offense, One BC, just purely for the meme potential, which is what is really the priority.
But if you think about it, Elizabeth May has more power than all of them put together because she has Jesus on her side.
Yeah, exactly. She's got the holy solar panels.
Jesus is now selling solar panels. No fun about religion there, but I'm just not sure if Jesus signed up for selling solar panels.
That's very meme-worthy. With the new video AI, you could knock up a video there, couldn't you, of him selling solar panels?
Maybe she did the tag because the sun, the energy comes from the sun. The sun, I don't know.
Son of God. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
But maybe that's it. Yeah, Son of Man.
All right, let's work on the markets. Let's go on the markets. Shrugging off the intensified Iran and Israel conflict.
20 years out there.
20 years out there, yeah. They're not involved yet. But it doesn't seem to bother the markets. The markets are doing quite well, actually. They're up, a few hundred, 300, 400 points. And gold actually sold off, which is typical. Gold was up mildly, but then, again, if you look at what the financial reaction is, that shows you what, they really think where this conflict's going to go. Because I can tell you, if the markets believe that this was going to be an escalation into World War III, the gold would be through the roof and the markets would be in the toilet. But right now, not so much.
Well, not even World War III, but even if Iran closed the Straits of Hormuz and went all in, that would freak people out. That would freak out oil prices, you would think. But yeah, they don't seem bothered, do they?
And then Bitcoin again, shrugging it off as well, up this morning. $107,000. That's 707. You know, I looked at a chart on Bitcoin in 2010. I think you could buy it for 16 cents or something like that. Hey, 16 cents. Just think if you put a couple bucks into it. Hey.
God damn. and there's so many stories of people buying like really stupid things with thousands of Bitcoins as well. It's just
16 cents. 16 cents. And I think one of the more famous stories is the guy bought a pizza, a Domino's pizza with like, I can't remember, like 50 Bitcoin or something like that. Actually, that Bitcoin back, eh? Wow.
Millions of dollars worth of
yeah, like is it the Canadian, all the currencies down on the U.S. currency too. Like, you know, like the board is actually in favor of the U.S. currency this morning. There you go. A little recovery there for the USD. And then, like you said, oil actually sold off. Interesting. Except for the Western Canadian Select was up this morning, which is interesting in itself. So maybe they thought, maybe there was a deal that on the table there with Danielle and Donald J. Trump. Who knows? Something's different there. Western Canadian Select up quite well, actually. Western Canadian Select is up this morning at almost 6%.
Now.
Almost at almost 6%, while West Texas Intermediate was sold off, and Brent was off. Everything else was off. And
take that, Texas.
And in our meme category, this is technology. We don't have much in technology. Just that breaking. Bloomberg says Tesla's robotaxis 1/7 of Waymo's. FSD has logged 3 billion miles versus Waymo 22 million. And Tesla has built its own cars, runs its own platform, and plans a fleet of 17x bigger by 2026. So, you know, there's so many people out coming saying that there is no competition for Tesla's robotaxi. Even some of the Tesla bears, like Jim Chanos, is coming out and saying stuff like that. So there you go. Make that of what you will. But, and then in our Are You Serious section, we got lots here this morning. Strawberries, 2 liters, the food professor, $17.50. What's the deal with that?
Pretty big strawberries, to be fair.
Yeah, those have been induced on steroids. And then the food
That's
professor,
terrible,
other tweet says, when strawberries hit $6 a pound during what should be peak season, something isn't right. Consumers should expect to pay about $3.50 to $4.50 a pound right now. Consumers are right to question what's driving these costs. There you go.
You went into a Brooklyn accent there, didn't you?
Good news. The Strong Pass is kicking off here. The launch of the Strong Pass, making it easier to access Canada's cultural natural treasures. Don't worry about it.
And your kids can go for free to museums.
You got to pay, but your kids can go free. And
even though it's already like loads cheaper for kids anyway.
If you combine that with Chrystia Freeland's advice to cut Disney, you get this, and then you add that money, if you save that from the taco and tinsel GST break, you're probably, you're doing well.
Yeah, basically an aristocrat.
If you think the economy is bad, then you probably are just suffering from a vibe.
It is a bit cheeky, this, though. It's like, it's a couple of months of, so you can go to national parks, but then museums, you have to still pay except your kids, and there's some like railway thing. But I mean, they're presenting this as a great gift, and yet in Britain, for example, like basically every museum in Britain is free.
Same as Europe,
especially in London. You just walk into the British Museum, the National Gallery, Somerset House, like all of these amazing, like absolutely amazing museums, some of the best museums in the world, and there's nowhere to give money or anything like that. You just walk straight in. It's completely free all the time. So I just think the British and some other countries can manage that. Can they not even manage like a year of free museums or something? Like, come on, try harder.
Well, if you cut off your Disney and did this, there's a savings of what, like, maybe even like, $15, $20.
Well, it can be actually really expensive. Where they announced it was in the Nature Museum, I think, in Ottawa. That's where Gilboa just announced it. Like, if you go there with a big family, you can easily spend just $100 just to get in, just once, just for one day. So it's not cheap, but obviously it's still going to be really expensive now. Even if the kids go free, it's still going to cost you quite a bit of money.
And then Brian Lilly wishing farewell to Theresa Tam as leaving her position, ends June 20th.
Yeah.
He wished
she was one of our overlords for several years, wasn't she? Easy to forget that.
Is she the one that gave us the glory hole, or was that Dr. Henry herself? Who gave us the glory?
I don't know if it was I don't know if it was Bonnie Henry, but I think it was BC. I think it was her department or whatever had come up with that. It was the
I'm pretty sure Theresa Tam
the public health.
Yeah, like if you need to have sex, you need to do it through these.
That was a low point, I think, in the history of Canada, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, Chrystia Freeland there, who doesn't like plutocrats, obviously has decided to join them. Remember back when Chrystia Freeland wrote the book warning about plutocrats? Now she's having more fun. So she's gone off to this this event here that's doesn't have the best. I don't have the name of it here again. I deleted that part, but she's in some event here in Europe there. It's very elitist.
Just like every single person that gets famous writing books like that, or going on about bloody plutocrats and how the mega rich are doing things, every single time they make it, they end up just doing the same thing. I mean, it's been going on for thousands of years now. So it's not new that Freeland is doing it, but I guess it does sting a bit, doesn't it? Because she defines herself based on that, her commitment to equality and fairness and all the rest of it.
And then we have this picture here of the elbows up crowd of two there, Dominic LeBlanc and Anita Anand. Smiles all around. Imagine voting for Carney, and a month and a half later, the Liberals are all giddy to meet with it. Their smiles definitely did say that, right? Like they were definitely
LeBlanc looks like he's about to have a stroke or something. He's about to hit the ground. A bit too excited, I would say.
It's like they met Mick Jagger.
To be fair, it must be hard to keep your cool when you meet him, because he is the most famous person in the world. He's just like everywhere all the time, isn't he? So to actually be standing in front of him must be a bit weird.
CTV News predicts a hot 2025 summer with Eastern Canada warming twice as fast as the global average. Climate, COVID, and Trump is all CTV knows. Canadian media is worse than Pravda. I think we have a clip here to play from this, don't we?
Well, Canada is expecting a very hot summer, and temperatures here in Quebec are rising twice as fast as the planetary average. So, Caroline, we could see a lot more hot, sticky days in the future.
Yes, and this information is according to the climate change research group Uranos. They say that melting ice sheets in the Arctic are to blame. They're causing land in northern areas to absorb more heat from the sun because they can no longer reflect it. And they predict that this heat will give us 2 months of heat waves in Quebec with more extreme temperatures by the turn of the century.
So I would say that Jesus might have something to do with the solar panels that he's pointing towards Earth, just on that certain area.
It's just such a ridiculous situation that we're in, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to deny, obviously, and very few people do deny that, obviously, climates around the world, some climates, not all of them, are getting hotter and the global average temperature is increasing. It's always the next bit that drives me mad, and I'm sure it was even in there. It must, in some way, it'll have been in that package, I'm sure, where it was like, oh, the carbon tax will fix that or something. It's just like, oh, God. As if we have the power to make it less sticky in the summer. Like, that's not within our power here in Canada, I'm afraid.
And there's this, there was that No Kings protest the other day, yesterday, I think. And then Donald J. Trump, I think this is a meme, this is an actual real, and I haven't checked it. Joe Concha, though, retweeted it, though. A huge thank you to all the No Kings protesters yesterday. I'm very concerned a king was trying to take my place, but thanks to all your tireless efforts, I'm still your president. Great job. That's the ultimate troll.
If it's not real, it's very believable. That's definitely something that he would say.
And if it's not real, he should probably do it, because, you know.
Just copy and paste it.
Just press the forward button. And then These one thing that Mark Carney did not give up on Trudeau is the photo ops. He's very much running the same. It must be Katie Telford that is like, we need more photo ops, because here's another photo op with the head of beer, but the two. But notice that Keir Starmer's beer is a little higher than Mark's, and it's because he probably sold them all those buses. Just like, and here's the we got you on the buses. Bust one over.
This is the Liberal Party trying to say, like, look how cool and sociable our guy is. Lets his hair down. I think he's overdoing it a bit with the Oilers thing, though, isn't he? He's going on about it like every single time he opens his mouth. It's something about the Oilers. That might be a little bit awkward if it's like at some point the Oilers play the Leafs or something in a final. Like, what's he going to do then? He's going to, because obviously that would really upset a lot of Leafs supporters, wouldn't it? Like, Keir Starmer is an Arsenal fan, the soccer team, football team, but he sort of keeps his mouth closed about it a bit because obviously there are rivalries, and that's among your voters. So you don't want to pick one and upset some other voters.
One of the photo ops you will not see from Kananaskis this weekend is Mark Carney toasting beers with Donald J. Trump, because he doesn't drink. He might have a Coca-Cola, but Macs all around, Big Macs all around.
Big Mac.
Yeah, you get along with him. You know what I mean? You guys can chow down on a couple of Big Macs, and there you go.
Don't think I would be that interested in the white stuff that Donald Trump is, but he could do that in the bathroom, and then we could have a couple of Pepsis outside.
There you go. I don't even know what you're talking about, but sure. Jagmeet Singh was saying that he needed protection and all that stuff, but then he goes to a concert, and now he says he regrets going to that concert. He played up that thing where he's, his life was in danger, and now he says, I shouldn't have gone, because he got spotted.
Why? Because in case he would be assassinated or something.
Yeah,
is that why he regrets
but
it?
he played that up pretty good about how he was, under threat, and then all of a sudden he just goes to a concert. Couldn't have been that
It's
big
almost
of a
like
threat.
he doesn't take it seriously.
Imagine that, eh? And then this, in our Are You Serious section, we got this, because I thought this was interesting, because this was sent to me by the Liberals, and it says, we have a plan. They just won't show us the plan, because they won't show us the budget, so that's the plan. And then again, one of the things that speaks to me in this is what they're saying they've accomplished, how we're achieving it, delivering a middle-class tax cut, remains to be seen, expanding the dental care program, and protecting $10. I mean, these are things that were there. Our priority, making housing more affordable, cutting the GST on first-time home buyers applies almost to no one, because even first-time home buyers don't buy new homes. And building 500,000 new homes, almost 500, now they're starting to couch that number, almost, right? Almost. Almost.
Soon that'll be aspiring to build almost 150,000 homes or something like that.
Building homes, and anyway, and our priority is building one Canadian economy. That's not seem to be working out very well with NDP, the BC NDP in Alberta. That doesn't sound like very good. Eliminating federal trade barriers, fast-tracking nation-building projects, recognizing credentials nationwide again, and then they're going to go on summer break. So why not? They've worked for almost like 2 weeks, right? And then
It's pretty hilarious.
And this one here I thought was funny. Breaking, a federal judge in San Francisco has ordered Israel to rebuild Iran's nuclear facilities.
That's funny.
And that's it. That's all we got. That's it.
Went out on a high point there, I think.
There you go. That's our show for today. We're back tomorrow. I'm sure we're going to get lots from the G7. And then, one of the big shots that he took this morning is that I'm sure some people are going to start recognizing. One of the big shots that he took is he blamed Trudeau and Obama for the start of the Ukraine war, because he said he took Russia out, and that's the fault of. So that's why Carney was trying to get him to let go, right? Because he's like Canada and the U.S. caused the Ukraine war by kicking Russia out, according to Trump.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, he really does. He nurses a bitter hatred of Justin Trudeau, doesn't he? Clearly. And obviously we know he despises Barack Obama, and that's mutual.
Yeah, there you go. That's it for today, though. And again, we encourage you to follow, like, share, all those things, and definitely help us get this out to a bigger audience. If you like this, see if you can share it with some friends, and so that we can keep doing this. And even though Stephen Guilbeault, we're going to try and get Stephen Guilbeault. That's a good shot, right? Like, good shot in the dark. I'm sure he would love to talk with us. And then I think we'll get a good shot at getting Andrew Lawton, I think that one is pretty...
Well, he's no stranger to media, is he?
No.
So
there you go. And then we're not going to let go on the ferry thing, and also this interior health thing. We're going to work on that. We're going to continue working those stories. And Kelowna now has done a really good job with the interior health story here and the crisis here we have here in the interior with our healthcare system. With that said, we're back tomorrow. We have Christina Lowen actually going to come and join us. We're going to do a chat with her. I think it's at 1 o'clock or something like that now. It's been moved because they had a tour of the hospital there. So
that's good. She'll have some fresh information.
There you go. She was outspoken on this crisis as well. Anyway, we'll see you then. Cheers. Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
We don't just report the news. We live here, too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now. Local, independent. News you can trust.